out in New York City, and joining us live from, I think it's Washington, D.C. Are you in Washington?
Paul? Washington, D.C. Just got off stage, just getting ready to come back to New York.
It is Paul Stanley of KISS, a couple weeks late, but we finally tracked you down.
Yeah, it was kind of weird because I had said I was going to do the show, and all of a sudden everybody was saying, how come you didn't do the show? So, but anyway, all good things happen, so here I am.
Yeah, it was funny because I was telling the listeners earlier that I talked to you on Tuesday, and you said, yeah, whatever happened with that? And I said, I thought you were going to tell me, and it just got screwed up. But I appreciate you taking the time, and I don't want to keep you long because I know you're just getting off stage and getting ready to come back to the city here. But we do have a number of questions that some of the fans have been asking for a long time and have asked me to pass along to you. So we'll run through them real quick and get some answers from you if that's okay.
Of course.
All right. First of all, the big question I've been asked for a long time is, what's the status of KISS Alive 4? Will it ever come out, and where does it stand?
That's a really good question, and hopefully we'll get that all resolved, at least in the sense that I can give you an answer. I can't really give you an answer right now. It's just tied up in a lot of red tape and bureaucracy and a lot of things that we try to keep away from, which is, the business side and a lot of things that really aren't worth going into. But, we planned on having it out as the tour was starting. So we're as disappointed as anybody. But, there's so many good things in the works that I think everybody's going to be real pleased. The outcome of all this is going to be very good.
Well, yeah, there's a lot. You guys just came through the area and did 4 shows, the 2 at Jones Beach and obviously the 2 at the Meadowlands. And it's pretty much rave reviews across the board from all the fans that have seen the shows. I mentioned this as well, during the shows, you kind of hint, and I don't know if I'm reading into something that's not there, but you hint that there may be something a little more grand and big to come before this is all said and done. Is that a fair assessment?
I don't want to lead anybody on. I think, before this is all over, there's going to be some really interesting and fun things going on. But, this isn't something we're going to milk. And, a year from today, you're going to be saying, this is the longest farewell tour ever. We're doing everything we can to do it in the grand scale that we think we should. And towards the end, there'll be some, more exciting and very KISS-like developments.
Can you tell us, or have you, or do you know and maybe can't tell us yet when the last KISS show will be?
I would say that the last KISS show in America will be by the end of September.
By the end of September?
Yeah.
Okay. And there's just an assumption here, and I don't know if it's accurate or not, that will be in New York City. Can you elaborate on that?
My take on it right now is that the way we would like to do it is make the last shows in America very much will be in New York City.
Right.
That's really our plan, though it's not official.
Right. Okay. Let me ask you this. What are your plans, or do you have any plans yet definitively for when the tour ends? Obviously more, theater is in your plans, I would think.
There have been a lot of great offers to do quite a few Broadway shows, which is, very rewarding, and also, I'm very, very flattered that people would come to me after having seen Phantom of the Opera, and that's really what I would imagine. It's pretty safe to say that the first thing I'll do in New York will be Phantom of the Opera.
Mm-hmm.
But
and you'd obviously be fairly comfortable with that, considering you just did it up in Canada as well, I would think, right?
Well, I did 120 shows in Toronto,
right.
And additionally, I was asked to do Jekyll Hyde, and I was originally asked to do that I was going to take that over in October, I believe, but the tour kept getting delayed and postponed, and it just messed that up. So that got put on hold, and there's been a few other shows, but it's very safe to say that I'd say within 6 months of the tour ending,
Right.
I'll do a Broadway show.
In case you just tuned in, we're talking live to Paul Stanley, who's on the phone with us from Washington, D.C., right after the KISS show on Saturday Night Rocks here on 102.7 NEW. And, Paul, is there any plans, or do you have any ambitions to possibly do another solo record?
You know, it's not on the front burner, that's for sure. It's not something I'm thinking about right now. But music is so much a part of my life that I'm sure at some point I'm going to do another album.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really a matter of when and what it'll be.
Right.
You know, I probably don't feel that keen on doing it right now because I would probably want some time to figure out what I would want that album to be like. And right now, I'd rather set my sights on other projects and come back to it at a point where I'm a little more clear and definitive about what I want to do.
I thought you did a great job with Millennium when you guys did that, and you had that opening bit. Was that the show, Millennium, the Lawrence Henriksen? Yeah, I thought you did a phenomenal job in that in the beginning, and I would think that might be an area you might be interested in pursuing as well, maybe the acting and the TV or movies type of thing as well. Is that something?
It was pretty funny because at the moment, and you know, I've learned to never say never because a lot of things that you say never to, you wind up doing.
Right.
But I really don't have any interest in doing film because theater is so interesting and so challenging because you don't have the cushion or the safety net of getting to do a second take or having somebody edit to make it look better than it really was. When you do theater, you get one shot a night at everything, and you either do your job or you don't.
Right.
So I like that a lot more because there's really, the pressure is much higher and the demand is much higher.
And I'm sure you've heard this many times, and we've heard it. I've heard it several times, and I tend to not believe it. But there are a number of people out there that have said continually that KISS farewell tour, they'll be back in a couple years doing it again. I believe that this is the last go around for you guys, and as a lifelong fan, I think you're going out the right way, very respectable with the band on top. And as much as I'd like to see KISS continue forever, I actually think it is the right thing because the memories that I'll have forever for KISS will never be tainted, and I'll never have seen an old, tired band that didn't cut it up there. So that's why I really, as much as it's kind of almost emotional and sad for me to watch these shows and know that they're coming to an end, in the same token, I think you're doing it the right way. I think you're going out on top and going out strong, and I imagine that was a lot of the thought process in calling it quits at this time.
Yeah, you know, the best way I can put it is that I'd rather have people say, why are you quitting, than reach a point where they say, why don't you quit?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'd rather stop while we can still do the show and do it justice and do the band's history justice, to go out and be a shadow of what we once were, or have people look at us and go, you know, I mean, there couldn't be anything worse than having somebody tell me to put my shirt back on, you know. And,
right.
you know, everybody's chops are good, and, you know, I'm real pleased with my singing. And it's a good time to call it quits. That's when you should quit, is when you're on top. You know, I've seen too many people, whether it's entertainers or sports figures, just go a little beyond what I wanted them to do, and you know, I'd rather not have those memories.
You mentioned your singing, and there were a number of people who saw the local shows that just came through and thought that your voice sounded stronger than it's ever been. And I started thinking about it. Is there anything behind that? Maybe the theater experience, having done it. Did you bring any of that to the stage with the rock stuff?
Yeah, very much. You know, the last thing I wanted to do was start singing KISS songs like I was doing, you know, a musical. But at the same time, there were certain things that I learned and certain disciplines, you know, and things that I really never did before, in warming up and exercises and stuff that, yeah, I mean, I know, you know, I've never sung better than I'm singing now.
Yeah, it definitely shows on the tour, and obviously that you'll take that right into theater and whatever else you do. It's nice to have that instrument still so strong for you. And I imagine that when you went to theater, all the years of rock and roll, I'm sure, lent itself a little to that as well in the same way. I would
Yeah,
think.
it was a great combination, and I brought some of, that to rock and roll, but very much I was very adamant that I wasn't doing a rock version of theater. I was doing theater.
Right.
So you can use what you learn in either to make the other one stronger, but I don't want to bastardize either one.
Right. Paul, we'll let you go in just a couple because I know you just wrapped up the show. I don't want to keep you too much. Just a couple quick things here. A lot of fans asking about the set list of the show. You have any plans on working in some different songs and maybe substituting some things as the tour winds down?
It's possible, but not likely. It's an interesting question, and the concern that we have is not for the person who comes and sees 15 shows. Our concern is for the person who sees one show.
Mm-hmm.
And what we've spent a lot of time doing is trying to put together a great show.
Mm-hmm.
And for, the people who come to 5, 10, 15 shows and go, they're playing the same set, we don't do that by accident.
Right.
We did it because we spent a lot of time trying to make a show that when you left at the end of the night, you would feel that it was everything you expected. And when you start experimenting or changing songs, most of the time you're doing that because you're bored, not because the audience is bored.
Right.
So our main concern is always the 98% of the people who didn't come to 10 shows.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this.
Yes.
You talked about playing and this really being it. Has there been times as these shows get closer to the end, and you mentioned sometime around September, probably the final American shows, do emotions creep into it a little bit for you? Does it kind of hit you at times and say, wow, 27 years, this is actually, with each show getting closer to the end?
Yeah, I mean, there are moments during a show on certain nights where it can be emotional, but it's never anything that I'm dreading.
Right.
And it's never anything that I don't want to have happen. It's more the recognition and acknowledgement that this has been amazing and that the fans and the band have done something that most will never, ever accomplish, and it's real special to me.
Well, I'll tell you, for me, watching the show, the part that gets to me is during Do You Love Me, when you roll that video montage behind you.
Right.
And for a lot of people, I'm 35 years old and grew up with the band, and so many fans my age, they all say the same thing. It's like, oh my God, your whole life flashes in front of your eyes, growing up, when you watch that screen during that song. And I just recollect as I watch all the people that made fun of me as a kid for liking Kiss, and a lot of the sentiment you say in the show, things like they're never going to go anywhere, what are you, crazy? And now all those people are hitting me up for tickets, 20 years later. So
Sure.
It's really kind of, exciting. It's kind of like emotional, and you're sad that the band is ending, but in the same way, it's really like a celebration.
It should be. This isn't a wake. This isn't a funeral. This is a celebration of an amazing, amazing life and an amazing career, and something that we lived and the fans have lived. We've all had this incredible relationship together that'll never end.
Yeah. Well, Paul, thank you so much for calling in. My final question is to you, since we're dealing with the farewell tour. Do you have a definitive, memorable moment in the history of Kiss? And on the opposite side of the coin, is there anything, if you could take one thing back in the history that you kind of regretted?
Memorable. That's such a tough one, because
I'm sure there's a lot of them.
There are so many of them.
Was there a moment where you really said to yourself, wow, this is really...
Oh, sure. I think we were at Hara Arena, which is, I believe it's Toledo. And I remember sticking my head out from the side of the stage and thinking to myself, my God, this place is packed, and so was the last one, the one before that.
What year are we talking here?
I guess we're talking 75. I felt, watching and realizing what was happening, that, wow, this is going to get great. This is going to be a wild ride.
And how about on the opposite side of the coin? Is there anything that maybe a record or a moment or something you guys did that you said, if I could have done that again?
Never.
Yeah?
No. That doesn't mean I'm proud of everything that I've done. It doesn't mean that, I'm proud of every moment we've lived, but I would never change anything, because I am the biggest believer that everything you are is a result of what came before it, the good and the bad.
Great. And I want to go out with a song from your solo album, because it's probably my favorite record of all time. I want you to pick a track from it.
Oh, boy. From my solo album?
Yeah.
I would probably pick, I'd pick Tonight You Belong to Me.
Son of a gun, that's the one I had queued up.
There you go.
All right, Paul, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a safe rest of the tour, and I guess we'll see you in September sometime.
Thank you very much.
Take
Bye.
care. Paul Stanley checking in live with us from Washington, D.C.